Euromaxx, the highlight show. Coming up, Fashion Foray. Designer Philippe Starck ventures into the world of haute couture. Distinctive differences. A Berlin connoisseur taste tests bottled waters. Painter's Premises. A new book features pictures of Picasso's home life. Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Robin Merrill.
And welcome to the show from here in Berlin. Polaroid photography revolutionized the medium when cameras like this one came onto the market in the 1950s. For the first time, you could see the results of your photographic endeavors almost instantly. The advent of digital photography in the 1990s put paid to Polaroids, and the company finally stopped production last year. But an Austrian photographer with a dream is planning a relaunch.
Will the Polaroid camera be consigned to the history books? When the company ceased operations last year, it was a shock for instant photo fans and artists worldwide.
Yes, I was unbelievably scared. I tried to raise money to buy up as much as I could.
It was an awful moment when everyone thought they couldn't work with their beloved Polaroid materials anymore.
But now there's hope for the global Polaroid community. Florian Kaps from Vienna wants to save this instant form of photography. He's raised 1.5 million euros and has big plans.
We bought the Polaroid factory, where films were still being produced until last year. We now have a small team with 12 former Polaroid employees who are developing the new instant photo film. At the same time, there's also a small team working on a new instant camera.
Florian Kaps has already opened an instant photo shop in Berlin. For the moment, Polaroid fans can only buy leftover film and old cameras.
Our clientele is very mixed. We have older people who are happy to have a proper shop where they can buy these materials. Then there are many young people who are just discovering Polaroid, and they're fascinated by its retro charm.
One of these young enthusiasts is Lars Garten from Berlin. He's actually a doctor, but he does photo art in his free time. His pictures have been exhibited many times and printed in magazines. In the age of digital technology, he's fascinated by the analog Polaroid.
What I really enjoy is the character and the look that you get with Polaroid material. I think that's something you can't get with any other material, and definitely not with digital.
For Lars Garten, it's the moment that counts. He photographs paper cutouts placed in front of a real background. He does landscapes or even his newborn son.
When I see a picture and it moves me, then I know it's exactly the right picture. It captures the right moment. I feel Polaroid material really brings that out. When I have a beautiful emotional situation, then a Polaroid film helps to strengthen it even more.
For German Polaroid artist Herbert Döring-Spengler, the creative process only really begins after the photos have been developed. He photographs his portraits directly from the TV screen and then manipulates both the surface and the chemical composition of the photos. That's what appeals to him most about Polaroid.
I can put the film in the refrigerator beforehand and then warm it up afterwards with a hairdryer, or in a toaster, or in hot water. There are various options. I can cut it up or tear it apart.
Florian Kaps and his team are likewise still experimenting, but a new instant film is already in the pipeline.
We don't know exactly how the film will end up. It'll definitely be a very analog medium, and of course it will have the characteristic Polaroid frame. We're planning to hit the mainstream market in early 2010 and hope to sell 1 million films.
So good news for Polaroid fans around the world. It looks as though the legend will live on. A story with a happy end.
And I'm sure we'll have more on that story again. The French designer Philippe Starck is probably one of the best known in the world today. He's certainly very prolific, having created things ranging from futuristic lemon squeezers to motorbikes to the entire interior design of hotels. Now he's branching out into a new market, fashion. And of course he's done it in style, using only the best materials and designing timeless classics for men and women.
Philippe Starck's debut as a fashion designer involves a highly select range of models. He's planned everything meticulously. There's an eerie spiritual feel to the exclusive event, staged in an old railway station in Florence. The creator gives his personal take on the results. He first considered a foray into the fashion world 20 years ago.
I am a specialist. It's my job to be always in avant-garde. But when it's too early, it's really too early. And I was waiting that the time work for me, that new value arrive. People think twice about fashion and things like that. And I think it was the right time now.
Starck is a firm believer in intelligent cashmere and spent 2 years developing the material with traditional clothesmaker Ballentine. He has designed 30 items for men and 30 for women. Light, airy summer wear and waterproof jackets of the highest quality are designed to last for generations.
Cashmere is a natural high technology. Because today there is a lot of synthetic things and things like that, but finally when you take the best cashmere from this old company, Scottish company, Ballentine, they give the cashmere to the Queen of England. And if you add some treatment, wet-proof, waterproof to the cashmere, you have the highest technology, but natural.
He doesn't really consider himself a fashion designer as such. His main interest here is creating innovative fabrics. Starck's reputation has been steadily growing since 1990, when he burst onto the scene with Juicy Salif, an unconventional lemon squeezer. He has designed a vast array of different objects. They range from the iconic Eros chair to a Vauxhall motorbike and a sumptuously designed yacht called Virtuelle. Starck's output also includes fashion accessories like these shoes, although he's never had his own line.
I know that with my job, with my structure of thinking, more in the engineering, more in the design, with the rhythm of design. In design, we don't change of idea every 6 months. We propose when we have a new idea, that's all. That's why I love fashion, but me, I make something else.
Scottish knitwear brand Ballentine was bought by an Italian investor in 2004. Luca Cordero de Montezemolo, who is also head of carmaker Ferrari, is part of the management. He's delighted to see Philippe Starck reinventing cashmere for Ballentine.
A new lighter cashmere for leisure wear, indoors and outdoors. I like it. I appreciate his creativity, his inventiveness, and his familiarity with the materials.
Clothes that can be worn in the park or at a high society gala, compatible with any climate, and they never go out of fashion.
Today I'm interested by people who know that they are not just fashion victims, they are not just on this world just to buy and buy and buy. I want people who are their self, who are thinking about the society, the civilization, and that it's sexy, I can tell you.
Prices for this cutting-edge cashmere start at €400. A fair deal, Stark believes, given the product's timeless appeal and longevity.
Now, I'm sure you've heard of wine sommeliers, experts who train their palates to find the very subtle nuances in the taste of certain wines. Well, Jörg Rieser is a water sommelier, which seems to me to be much trickier. But he can tell the difference between all sorts of mineral waters, and nowadays there are more than 3,000 to choose from.
The sound of water is music to the ears of Jörg Martin Rieser. He's a water sommelier, one of only a few in Germany.
I certainly feel fulfilled by my vocation, by serving water, because for me water has always been important. We come from water, so it's fascinating to me to see that element.
Rieser manages the stylish First Floor restaurant in Berlin. 3 years ago, he had the idea of creating a water menu in addition to a wine list, and soon gained a reputation as a water connoisseur. He wanted to share his knowledge, so along with co-author Rosemarie Donhauser, he wrote a book about his favourite element.
I wanted to show there's more out there than cheap bottled water, and that water isn't just water. The taste can vary greatly. Anyone can find that out by means of a blind taste test. Just try tasting 3 or 4 different kinds of water at home, and you'll think, right, those taste completely different.
Patrons of the First Floor restaurant have far more than that to choose from. Here there are a good 40 different kinds from 18 countries, as far afield as Argentina and New Zealand. There's something for every palate and for every dish.
This water comes from the volcanic Eifel region of Germany, so it's got a high mineral content and it tastes that way. It's almost like you've dissolved an aspirin tablet in it. I could imagine it going very well with a hearty main dish, maybe a steak or a braised dish, something with a strong flavour. The other, very soft with a neutral flavour. It comes from Denmark, where there are no volcanoes. It would go well with a light appetizer or for dessert because it suits a sweet taste.
It hasn't escaped food critic Nicolas Rechenberg's notice that water is no longer seen in fine restaurants as a mere thirst quencher.
Water is becoming more and more important in restaurants. So you have water X to go with one course and water Y for another. That's something of an exaggeration, but it's fascinating that you can taste the differences. There's water with a higher salt content or a higher iodine content and neutral water.
Rieser's book doesn't only deal with the different kinds of water, it also talks about water myths and rituals, and about the qualities of carbonated mineral water, tap water, spring water, and spa water. It also discusses the health claims each of the bottlers makes for their product.
This is from Holland. It has a high oxygen content, 35 times higher than normal water. The shape of the bottle symbolizes an oxygen bubble. The water is supposed to help with jet lag.
Jörg Rieser's interaction with water is not only professional, but also personal.
What's great about Berlin is that despite it being a big city, there's so much water everywhere. Whenever I'm stressed from work, I can go out and be on the water, and that's incredibly soothing. This place is especially nice for just walking and letting your mind wander.
Not surprisingly, the 32-year-old lives near water. Here's where he mulls over the new kinds he can add to his restaurant's ever-growing selection.
The British graffiti artist Banksy is perhaps the most famous or infamous artist around today, and somehow he remains anonymous, which is obviously part of his whole image. He's known for stunts like hanging a smiley Mona Lisa in the Louvre in Paris, and now he's gone overly conventional and staged a proper exhibition in a museum, which was, of course, kept a secret until the opening.
Banksy is a man of many talents. His creations include installations, graffiti, and paintings, but his subject matter is rarely conventional. Nothing is sacred when it comes to his motifs and messages. Now, his home city of Bristol is hosting the biggest ever exhibition of his works. But as ever, the elusive artist will not be appearing.
It was part of the deal. In order to secure him, we needed to make sure it was just within certain members of the management team and the exhibition's organiser. So, yeah, it's been very cloak and dagger, not the way we normally work.
There are lots of rumours, but we were the last group to find out because we're all kind of new staff brought on especially for this exhibition. So.
Banksy conquered the international art world from the street up with his witty graffiti. People across the world have woken up to find walls transformed overnight. Their creator remains a man of mystery. He's captured some of his antics on film, seen here secretly hanging his own picture in a museum, using a cunning disguise, of course. His work is now so popular that some examples have been torn off walls and sold for hundreds of thousands of euros. Not even the auction houses have seen Banksy's face.
I would love to have met him, but no, we haven't had that opportunity. We are in contact with him through his dealer, who is Steve Lazaridis, but his identity is definitely still anonymous.
His art is less clandestine, often involving bold colors and freestyle execution. Although many works use a stencil, his imaginative murals have appeared everywhere from New York to London. Opinion is divided on their artistic merits, however.
I've got a 3-year-old granddaughter who could do that.
You don't think it's art?
I think it's crap, personally.
I think it's great.
You like it?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Why is that?
Because he's a clever fella, really, because he's putting art that's worth a fortune on the wall.
The exhibition in Bristol offers visitors the full spectrum of Banksy's repertoire. The man may be extremely shy, but his art speaks all the louder for him.
And I think he's wonderful. We turn now to the man who was probably the most influential artist of the 20th century, Pablo Picasso. And unlike Banksy, he spent a great deal of his time in the public eye. A new coffee table book has just come out featuring some of the wonderful houses he lived in his later years. A great insight into the mind of a true genius.
Pablo Picasso, the artistic genius. But what was life really like for this world-famous man? What did the places that he called home really look like? Journalist Helga Sobik has studied Picasso's houses for about 2 years. Initially, it was just for a magazine article, but then he realized the topic demanded more attention.
Explaining it all in a magazine didn't work. It was such a terrible shame to dispense with this topic in just 8 pages when there was so much more to say, and where it became relatively clear that there were a series of photos of these houses shot in the 50s and 60s by Robert Capa, Henri Cartier-Bresson, and Robert Doisneau.
And so the work grew into a book about Picasso in his private surroundings. In 270 pages, it shows how the great master lived at home. He seemed to feel best amidst a certain degree of chaos.
He painted in one room, lived in another, slept in the next, and in no time at all, he succeeded in filling these rooms to the brim, most of the time without shelves or drawers. The rooms were simply full of everything he created and left lying where it was.
In 1948, Picasso moved to southern France. He was in his late 60s at the time. To begin with, he bought 2 simple houses in Vallentine. After splitting with his partner, he felt in need of a change. With the new lady in his life, he moved to a glamorous villa in Cannes.
The 4 years he lived in Cannes, he held court like a Hollywood star. On the one hand, he complained about the many visitors and by no means let everyone in. But on the other hand, you can see here, he obviously enjoyed posing with Brigitte Bardot in front of the house. Hollywood star Gary Cooper also visited and gave him his pistol and cowboy hat. And again he put on this outfit for photos, playing the cowboy with an almost childlike glee.
But eventually, Picasso decided he needed more peace and quiet to be able to work on his art. He bought the medieval castle of Vauvenargues near Aix-en-Provence. Picasso is buried in the castle garden. The place has been preserved to this day, almost as if the master had just laid down his paintbrush.
It was great to see the buckets of paint still standing there and the easel. I felt very moved about being able to stand there where he created his works and see his private rooms. I enjoyed that.
Picasso lived here from 1959 to 1961. For the first time, the property is open to the public for a couple of months. Here, the Spaniard was able to give free rein to his creativity. Even the bathroom wall is a real Picasso. But his later work was created in house number 5, in the French village of Mougins. There, he devoted himself completely to his work.
There is a biography that portrays him quite negatively, as a hardened soul, a moody guy. But the deeper I've gotten into this topic, and the more I've talked with his contemporaries in southern France who made pottery with him, and those who lived next to his studio, the more likable he seems to me.
The artist Picasso, this time from another perspective. Like his work, Picasso's houses testify to a fascinating personality.
Finally, the young soprano Anna Prohaska doesn't look like your typical opera singer, or indeed act like one. She comes from a family steeped in classical music and had a perfectly normal operatic training, but she's also a fan of heavy metal music and likes the latest fashions. We met up with her here in Berlin.
Far from being some temperamental diva, Anna Prohaska is not your typical opera singer. She likes rock music and would love to party if she didn't have to get enough sleep and take care of her voice. She takes it all in her stride. Music is her life. But making too many compromises for her career would be out of the question.
One of my colleagues actually suggested once that I dress more conservatively, that it might help my career. But I think the days are long gone when you're expected to wear pressed blouses or pinstripe trousers.
Last year was a big year for Prohaska. Her studies took a back seat to her starring in major roles at Berlin's Staatsoper. Her repertoire includes the classic roles. For example, the maid in Mozart's Abduction from the Seraglio at the Staatsoper.
I think it's very important not to let yourself be intimidated by the great singers who came before. For example, I admire Maria Callas hugely. She was a great artist. But if you start thinking, I'll never sing like her, then you might as well give up. That's why you always have to try to find your own way. What do I, Anna Prohaska, have to say through this role? What can I bring to it? How can I perform it in my own way?
Prohaska grew up in Vienna. Her grandfather was a conductor, her father a director, and her brother a tenor, so she knew what she was getting into.
I think my parents would have been very happy if I had studied something proper, like architecture. Anything to get out of the family business, so to speak. Away from the impulse that drives us all to perform. But once they saw that I really wanted to do it, then they supported me in every way.
Next, there's the Salzburg Festival, and then her first CD. Anna Prohaska has a lot to do.
And as always, you can find lots of these reports on YouTube if you want to see them again. Just type in Deutsche Welle, English, all one word, and off you go. See you next time. Bye-bye.